What is our project today? Well, it happens to do with a light switch. Kaboom. Here we've got 3 light switches here, and this one is not working. I'm over at my auntie's house, and she says, "Hey Joe, can you come over here and take a look at my light switch? It's not working." So I looked at it, sure enough, it's not working, and we figured out which lights it was controlling. It's controlling a light lamp over there and over there. The first thing I had to do was figure out if it was a separate light switch, and that was the only thing it went to, because I needed to come over here because I wanted to make sure it wasn't a 3-way switch. You know, like if you turn this switch on, let's say, and then you can turn it off somewhere else down the hallway, maybe add another light switch over here or something like that. So I had to come over here and figure that out, and sure enough, I figured out that was a single pole. So I went to the store. Before I went to the store, I also looked on here and see how this is called a paddle light switch, okay? And it had a little ridge around it. See that little trim piece that goes around there? I wanted to make sure I got something exactly the same, and this is white, and it's not the ivory color, so there was many things. I didn't want to just go over to the store after I talked to my auntie. I wanted to come over here and check it out. I went down to the store, kaboom. I found the exact same one, white. See that little edge piece that goes around there? This was like $2. It was single pole. When you go to the store, you look around and see that it says single pole switch with ground. Okay, and that's what I got. This was like $2. So for $2, you can fix it yourself. Hey, do you need to be an electrician for this? No. Any average Joe can do this. You stick around and I'll show you how. Yes, did you hear that? My auntie said you just have to make sure the power's off. Okay, we do not want to open this little area here without turning the power off. Now, how do you do that? You go to your electrical panel and you figure out which circuit it is. And so what I did, I've got the light breaker off right now. What I did is I turned one of these light switches on to make sure that I saw that the light was on, and I just looked up here, and these were the eyeball canister lights. My auntie was here, so I got on my cell phone and I says, "Tell me when the lights are off." So I had these on, because usually in a box like this, usually there's only going to be one circuit in here. Now sometimes there's 2 circuits depending what you have in here. If you have a ceiling fan and then some light switches, let's say, maybe you've got 2 different circuits in there, so you always got to figure that out. This was a standard switch, so chances are there's only going to be 1 circuit in there. Okay, so I had the lights on, and so then what did I do? I went outside. Yeah, you probably want to know this, so I figure I might as well show it to you. You know, some average Joes don't know about a panel, an electrical panel. Okay, you go out, you try to find it. Incidentally, some places have a sub panel inside a garage or something like that. This one's outside, and you never want to work on this side over here. See, this has an actual little lock on it. This is for your electrical company. You never want to break that off. You could get in big trouble for that. And some of these come off different ways. This one happens to slide, and then the hinge bit here, right in here, slides down, and then see, it's got a lip up here, so this had to drop down. Other ones, the whole thing here folds up. This one happens to flip out here, and you look on here, you think, my word, what's going on here? How on earth am I going to figure out which one of these it is? Well, generally for your lights, you want your breaker's going to be a 15 amp breaker generally, and you look on here, see, this one says 15, these say 20. Now see, this one is in the same area slot container as this, but there's 2 of them. You're like, what's the deal with that? This is a twin breaker. This is a circuit, and that's a circuit. Here, they just happen to have a 15 amp circuit, and they took up this whole thing. They could have put a thin one in there and stacked it. Well, they didn't. They did that. They had stackable ones on the 20s that they put in, or they could have knocked out more knockouts. See, they have 2 more knockouts, but they didn't, and so they put in some twins. That was kind of good. And usually they're on a 15 amp. Okay, so I found this 15 amp and I turned that one on first, because you look over here, generally you're going to have a board here that kind of tells what the breaker's doing. And see, that says a number 8, and that right there says 8 right on the little panel there, and that's your 15 amp, and that says lights and plugs. So I tried that one first and it wasn't that one, so I went down and looked at the next 15. You see, the next 15 was there. See there? And that said lights and plugs and smoke alarms. Well, that wasn't it either, so I went down to the next one, and that said lights and plugs. This one says lights and plugs. These other ones say lights and plugs. I didn't know which one it was, so I turned the next one off, and sure enough it was that one, so I left that one off. Okay, that's kind of how you figure out how to do it. If you got something else like in your kitchen, like your garbage disposal, or maybe your dishwasher or something like that, generally those are under 20, so you look at those and figure stuff out like that. Okay, so that's kind of what I did. Okay, I'm just going to leave that closed. I don't want to leave that open. I don't want any kids messing around. I mean, I could put a piece of electrical tape or masking tape over that breaker to make sure nobody turns it back on or anything like that. Okay, let's go back in here and take this switch apart. Of course, the first thing we've got to do is take these screws out, and that's a standard slotted screwdriver. That's what I call that. Okay, and I've got a good feeling that all the power's off now to this whole box right here. Just remember what you're doing, be careful, and we're going to put it all back in the same way. See, all we're going to do is we're going to take this one switch, we're going to unscrew that, we're going to leave these 2 alone. Before we just pull this off and rip it off with our fingernails, it might be caulked around there. You've got to double check that first. If somebody has painted the house again, if they haven't taken these cover plates off, and that, my friend, is a no-no. Whenever you paint, you always want to pull those off so you can get the paint underneath there, and then let it dry 100% before you put the cover plates on. Lots of people don't do that. They might take the plates off and they repaint their house, and then before the paint is cured 100%, they screw the plates on there nice and tight, and then next time you want to pull this off, it's sticking, you try to pull it off, and maybe you break the cover plate off, you snap it or crack it, or you pull this off without being careful, and you may rip some of the sheetrock paper off and it goes out too far. You don't want to do stuff like that. You want to take time and make sure that you can pull this off. And this one here, it feels loose. Okay, so that was good. If it wasn't loose and if it was catching behind there, you could take a sheetrock knife, and I always have one with a retractable blade. And then you can take that and gently score this underneath the plate, let's say a little bit around as best you can, you know, until you can get it moved out a little bit, and then you can score it a little bit more. You don't want to score straight down. You want to kind of put it at a slight angle. Don't let this drag on your nice wall or something. And then you can gently remove it, okay? I'm going to pull that off. And then there's going to be some more screws underneath there. Usually it's a Phillips screw, or it has a slot in it too. So you can take your slotted screwdriver, but I like to, it kind of slides off a little bit if you're not paying attention. I like to just take my Phillips. This is a Phillips. Okay. And I'm just going to unscrew this. I'm still going to be careful with this. I don't want to start pushing my hands in there thinking, okay, I have the breaker's off. Maybe there's a second breaker for this box, but generally, like I say, there's not. So, but you still want to kind of just be careful about it. Okay. I'm gonna gently pull that out like this. And that's all I'm gonna do right there. And what you're gonna see is, I'm gonna zoom this in a little bit. This one happens to have a red wire and a black wire. You see that? There's some white on there because it's from the sheetrock mud and stuff. You always want to kind of pay attention a little bit. And then there's another wire on the other side. And that wire on the other side is not a white wire. It's not the neutral wire. It's actually a ground wire. And let's get you over. And most switches nowadays has a screw, a ground screw. Do you see that? There's a green screw right there. Okay, and this copper wire is your ground. So that's attached to here. And then you've got your other two. Here's a black wire and a red wire. Okay. And I've seen lots of electricians, they'll take something apart like this in a second. They'll just pull it out like that. They won't even turn the power off. But I would not suggest that. You are an average Joe. I must remind you of that. You are an average Joe, and we don't work on hot circuits, okay? So here, I just pulled it out a little bit more like that. Just be mindful. We're going to undo this here. Once we get it all connected back, we're going to push this back in just like how it was before, okay? So we can be like that. And if this is long enough, you could cut that off, really, if you wanted to, with some cutters. If you wondered what kind of cutters would you use, you'd use something like this. Okay. And I also have some wire strippers. You could cut them off with a pair of wire strippers right there, and then you could re-strip your wire. All right. We're gonna see whether or not we can get that. Now see, if you didn't want to do that, you look on there. Let me zoom this. Let me get this over here. See if you can see that. Okay, see that little square slot underneath the wire? Got the wire here, and then there's a square slot right there. Think, what is that for? Well, if you don't want to strip the wire, you can push a little screwdriver in there. You know, something like this. See how small that edge is? I'm not even sure if that can fit in there. I'm going to try it and see. Okay. I can push it in there. See these screws on the side? This has nothing to do with anything right now. Those side screws. Okay. Lots of times electricians will take this wire and they'll put a loop in it, and then they loop it around the screw here, clamp it down, tighten it, and then tighten the side screws. You can do that, but if you see something on the side, on the end, you can just push them straight in. I'm gonna look at this light switch here. Let's just see what it has. Let's just see here. And incidentally, there is a top and bottom to these, and I'm going to have to look at it real close. Usually there's written top on one side or the other. I know the light, I might have to go outside and take a look at that to figure out which one that is. But see, I'm looking at this. Here's your side screws, and here's a hole right there with the little slot underneath the hole. So I can push them straight in if I want. Here's the ground screw. On the other one, you saw the ground screw was on the bottom. All right. On that side, here's the screws. Chances are that's the top. I'm gonna go outside here and just see if I can see that. Okay. You go outside sometimes if your light isn't very good inside, and you'd be surprised what you can see. And right underneath that screw it says top. You might not be able to see that. See? Top. Okay, so I know that's the top. because I don't want to put it in upside down. I mean, the light switch would still work if I did. I don't like doing that. Even if those are 3-ways, this is not a 3-way switch, and it's only a single pole. Single pole meaning it's only for one location. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can get those out. Let's just see what I can do here. I'm gonna press in. So I have to press in there and pull this wire out at the same time. It's kind of tricky. Let's see what I can do. There. Yeah, pull it right out. See there? And this one is on the back side, so I'm gonna push that in right there and pull the red wire out just like that. And what does it matter? Does the red have to be at the bottom? Does the black have to be at the top? No, it doesn't matter either way. But I'm going to do it the same. The red was on the bottom just because the wires are kind of set up that way. And I can take this and just flip it around like that. The ground wire can be twisted. Don't be afraid to do that. Okay. I'm going to undo that screw. And this has a little loop in it. See there? See that loop there? That went around the screw. When you put something on like that, you always want the wire going around the same direction as when you're tightening up this screw. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, meaning if you turn to the right, it's going to tighten it. To loosen it, go to the left.